The Center for Early Childhood Education at Eastern Connecticut State University presents Early Childhood Insights, an audio podcast series featuring interviews with experts on topics of interest to early childhood professionals.
Hello, and welcome to Early Childhood Insights. I'm Julia DeLapp, Program Coordinator at the Center for Early Childhood Education. Today we will be talking with Dr. Douglas Clements about introducing technology into preschool classrooms. Dr. Clements is a professor of learning instruction at the Graduate School of Education in the University at Buffalo's SUNY system. He has worked on a number of projects looking at the development of early math skills in young children and the use of technology to support learning, including the Building Blocks Project. Welcome, Dr. Clements. Let's get started with the first question. What do you find most exciting about the use of technology in education today?
A lot of the technology that excites me has been around for a while, but just not used particularly well in early childhood education and in math education, which is my main area of study. So we've known for years that technology can engage young children. Technology can present through computer-assisted instruction some interesting tasks for kids, and then they give feedback from the computer, and that this can do good things for them, for their learning. But up to now, it's been difficult to get that kind of technology well into the hands of teachers. With the increasing infusion of technology into people's schools and classrooms, and with the internet being able to deliver software to them without having to install software and things like that, it's becoming more accessible for those teachers. And paraprofessionals and everybody else having computers at home and internet access, it opens up yet another avenue for their own professional development, as well as for them to be able to plan to use technology with their kids the next day. They don't have to be sitting in the classroom all the time to do that kind of planning. So this notion of access and some new technologies, video technology, are what really opens up a new field of possibilities.
Why should early childhood teachers consider utilizing computers and other technologies in their classrooms, particularly related to teaching beginning math skills?
There's a lot about mathematics education that technology can help with if used properly. Math is, more than many other subjects, science and literature and literacy, a highly sequenced domain and hierarchical domain. You have to know one thing before you can really understand the next thing in the domain. One of the things that computer technology can do is help teachers sequence that kind of material for kids, so that if the software is properly developed for the computer, if the kids are at a certain level of thinking, the computer can just start giving them tasks at the next level of thinking, encourage them to keep going. On the other hand, if they fail at that task, it can gently move them backwards to a set of prerequisite skills that they might need to move ahead. That's just one use. Another use is to open up a world of creativity for the kids. So open-ended kind of software plays a very different role, but a very important role in mathematics, because kids can actually play with certain kind of mathematical ideas, perhaps more with technology, given that it can be programmed to embody the mathematical ideas and mathematical processes we want kids to learn in a micro world or little exploratory environment for kids. A lot of those kind of mathematical ideas then could be made real on the screen, iconically and pictorially for kids, in a way that's almost better sometimes than concrete materials.
What about other technologies, such as digital video?
Now, digital video is yet another thing. So digital video can not only bring animation and other things to children, but it's really important for teachers' professional development. I was a kindergarten and preschool teacher myself, and I know that when I could see and visualize how a certain activity went with kids, it was much easier for me to deliver that activity in a good way, in a way that had high fidelity to the intentions of the person that wrote the activity. When I just read it, it was much more difficult to say, well, exactly what does this look like? Exactly how is this going to feel when I get in the classroom and the like? So digital video is great because now we can share kind of teaching episodes and the thinking of children and everything with teachers all over the country, all over the world, comment on those, interact around those, and bring the professional expertise of different practitioners right to your doorstep. And I think those are the things that are unique about technology. Those kind of things are really important for teachers to see, especially in mathematics, because mathematics isn't a domain most of us in early childhood have had a lot of experience with. For decades, it's been thought, oh, math is more abstract, it's not appropriate for young kids, so that's for elementary school. But for the earlier years of education, you do a couple shapes, maybe you count a little bit, that's about it. But more recent research and history, actually, going way back to Frederick Froebel and his mathematical gifts and occupations, show that kids can do fundamental thinking about mathematics in a wide variety of domains, and that they enjoy it. So rather than being pushed down from the elementary school, it arises up out of kids' natural play and their natural interest in the world. All this can be captured on digital video for both kids and in one way and for teachers in another way, for us to be able to explore and help learn about how kids learn mathematics.
So why is there so much resistance to using computers in early childhood classrooms?
A lot of this came from Piaget and the notion that there were kids who were at different stages of learning, and at the sensory motor stage, they really had to do concrete things. And even in the concrete stage, which is elementary school age basically, they needed concrete objects to learn to understand things. And only in formal operational stage, when kids are in adolescence, would you do really this kind of symbolic and abstract kind of thinking. But more recent research shows that that's a little oversimplified. It's also misunderstanding Piaget a little bit, because when he said a concrete operational thinker, he didn't mean the kids had to have concrete things in their hands. He meant that they needed to make it concrete for themselves at that point. What we found lately in mathematics education and in technology education is that computers can really help kids bridge the worlds between their concrete experience and abstract mathematical thinking at a very young age. So that when some people, especially teachers, encounter computers, they say, really, I think my kids should have hands-on experience. And what they mean by that is computer experience isn't hands-on. In a physical way, of course, they're right. It's good for kids to touch the objects they count, to touch the shapes they think about. But on the other hand, to understand counting, you can't understand that in objects. 4 isn't in the fingers. 4 is in the mind. When you look at the fingers and abstract those as units and put them together and say together as a group, I call that 4. And when you can see these fingers are 4, and you could see 4 blocks on the floor and say that's 4, what an abstraction. So we know that young kids, 2, 3 years old, can abstract very interesting ideas and can symbolize them, at least in spoken language and very soon in written language as well. Where does technology fit in all this then? Well, technology can put on the screen multiple representations of these kind of ideas, and connecting those representations can help kids bridge the world between concrete 4 blocks and the abstract idea of 4. Because when things go on the screen, kids can count them, and maybe the computer will say the word 4 or ask them to count, and then they count each one, and it will say, yes, that's 4, and represent the 4 both with 4 claps, with 4 pictures on the screen, and the word 4. They're helping kids make connections between those various representations, and they're linking the concrete experience kids have already had with 4 objects with pictures of 4, which are just as concrete to kids mathematically. Why? Because mathematically, again, the word 4 is abstract. So what you just need is a concrete representation. But we now know that concrete is much more about meaningfulness than it is about physicality. It's much more about what makes sense to me than it is that something's got weight. So that when kids see 4 objects, and there's a picture of 4 dogs on the screen, that's as meaningful to them as having 4 dogs. And indeed, the 4 dogs on the screen can be ordered and thought about and manipulated with much more control than 4 dogs running around your floor can be. So that can help kids make the kind of connections between their concrete experience and this new abstract experience. And the welding of those two is actually what understanding is. When many different ideas are linked together, computers can help young children link the ideas and thus build strong understanding of mathematics.
So I want to know if I'm hearing you right. Are you saying that the computer can play a more important role in children's learning than the teacher in the classroom?
Goodness, no. The people that have feared, oh, if computers come in, they'll replace teachers and everything will be mechanistic. First of all, the computer needs to be embedded in a rich educational environment, of which the computer is only a small part. The computer just plays one role. I talked about that role as being connecting different representations, but the computer role in the classroom is to just be one more teaching aid. The teacher is the one that controls that. She's the one that has to pick the educational experiences for the kids on the computer to make sure they are receiving the hands-on thing and see the connections between their hands-on work on physical objects and their hands-on work on these computer objects as well. Furthermore, kids are more interested in computers, more likely to learn from computers if a teacher's nearby and able to interact with them.
When computers are being used to support emerging math skills, what is the role of the teacher?
The teacher is wise to be nearby, not on the kid's back all the time. Actually, the research shows if you sit there too much, kids don't learn as much. But if you're available for that question when kids really do get stuck, so you can go over and talk to them about it, engage them in the mathematics that's being presented, it increases kids' learning by quite a bit, and like I said before, their motivation to continue to do it. So this is not a story about kids individually being tutored by this machine, but the story of a tool that can be used by a teacher to enhance kids' mathematical understanding.
How does this translate to the home environment? What role should parents play in supporting children's use of computers?
Parents also play a significant role. Similar to teachers, computers are used too often in the home as a kind of babysitter, as a TV substitute. So I've got them off TV. At least they're on the computer. They'll learn something. And in fact, it may have very little advantage over good TV programs. Parents really have to do two things. They have to make sure the software grows with the kids, is appropriate to the kids, and grows with the kids. But the bigger thing, and the second thing, is sitting down with the kid. Not the whole time, like we just talked about with teachers, but at least for some time, setting the kid up, make sure they understand what the instructions are, and then coming and showing some interest and talking to the kid a little bit. It's exactly the same as the research says about television. Television can help raise kids' achievement, get them ready for school, and even promote some good social, emotional gains for kids and some understandings of how you should interact. But those benefits are far greater if a minor amount of time that the kids are watching, parents will watch with them and talk to them about what they're doing. So on the computer, it's the same way. You want to be there as a resource. You want to make sure they're set up. Stop by once in a while and say, how is it going? Tell me about what you're doing. And definitely be available when kids have questions, because it's at that point that, again, the teachable moments will occur in the middle of that, where you can make a real advance by getting into interesting discussions about the mathematics and what's happening, or other subject matter area on computers. Because this lesson, make sure you're actively involved with the kid, applies to all subjects.
And what should parents look for when selecting computer programs?
So we have to look for software that matches the kind of thing that you think your kid should be learning. It has to be appropriate for the kid at that time. So that a lot of people will think, oh, what I'm going to do is get this program for my kids. Well, so they'll get a commercial off-the-shelf program. And those programs can be very good for a very short time. But you'll often see these will count, let's say they teach counting to 10. And you buy it for your kid and he learns to count to 10, and that's great. Kids will play that game for the next 1.5 years if it's got motivating kind of characters on the screen, but it's not teaching them anything. If you sit with the children, you should know, too easy, too hard, just right. It's easy for kids to get involved with things that are too easy. They often, if picking on their own, will pick activities that are too easy because it's the kind of human tendency to say, oh, this is fun, I can do this very easily. There is software out there that teaches kids to discriminate one color from another. Well, research has shown kids know that about 3 weeks of age. So why are they selling this to 3- and 4-year-olds? You want to keep pushing them a little bit in a gentle way to challenge themselves. And that's why I say there are software suites that grow with children. These are probably more appropriate, that give challenges, that give tasks, that gives kids an activity that's at the next level of thinking. It does take some digging to try to figure out what are the kind of things that my kid's developmentally ready for to learn, and then try to match the technology environment with the needs of the child.
How can we help more experienced teachers transition to newer approaches, especially with integrated technology?
When teachers are trying to incorporate some of these new technologies, it is important for them to get good, guided, hands-on experience with those technologies. And some of the best ways are to try to get involved with projects that are working with those technologies, with kids, with teachers, the ones that have video, so you can go in there and see how this looks when people are using that. These kind of things. You need some practical, hands-on kind of experience yourself. You need enough of that so you feel confident in it. If you can get involved in the project or start a little group of your own with colleagues and peers where you share ideas and things like that, that's going to be the most important thing. But I'm speaking to teachers to plead with their administrators that you have adequate tech support. There's nothing more frustrating than working a long time on the technology and not having someone who can solve a little glitch. So teachers who are interested in this should follow the same kind of hands-on and substantial time commitment recommendations that anybody should follow, and also make sure that they don't feel that they have to abandon old approaches. Technology should enhance and enliven the kind of good teaching that teachers have been interested in and involved with for a long time. What's important is for them to see new opportunities and new ways of thinking and connect those to so-called old ways of thinking, not to abandon one and jump to the other. I think the most important thing that we need to say about technology is that it's just like supporting learning with any kind of media or any kind of tools or any kind of interaction.
This concludes this episode of Early Childhood Insights. Thank you, Dr. Clements, for talking with us today, and thanks to all of you for listening. You can watch a video that includes a portion of this discussion and footage from early childhood classrooms on iTunes U or by visiting our website.
This has been a presentation of the Center for Early Childhood Education at Eastern Connecticut State University. For more information about the Center for Early Childhood Education, please visit our website at www.easternct.edu/CECE. Make sure to subscribe to this feed to get more audio podcasts in this series as they become available.